Well, welcome to the Beyond Cinema magazine experience at the AFCI Pavilion. Caroline Norbury, Chris Moll, Kaye Elliott. Are the crews finding it similar that they're able to now get a better grip on what's happening, perhaps not in their area, but in the area next to them, and being able to kind of find those productions and that work a little more easily?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I think it echoes back to the fact that where I think our absolute strength is because we are a national organisation. There is no longer boundaries, so we don't have to kind of get into that which perhaps was there before. If you were a crew and you were based in, say, Leeds, you know, you had a kind of boundary line and your agency would support you in that boundary, but if you went over and maybe worked in Manchester, we can't support you anymore. Obviously that's all gone now. So from a crew point of view, we're doing two quite important things for them. One is creating a national crew database, so essentially you can search crew across the whole of the country, and because it's a free service and because it's free to join, there is no kind of, we are entirely impartial, so there isn't any kind of like, well, we're going to promote those ones over those ones because they've paid us X, and I think that really means a lot for industry because it means that they know that we're impartial. We're not trying to push anyone because there's money in it, and I think that means a huge amount to both industry and also to the crew that we represent. But in addition to that, we're also running monthly crew events, so that it gives the opportunity, and they're all across the country, for crew to get together, to network with each other, to meet production companies locally, and I think it's really freeing. I mean, I love doing my job now because there is no more any of that kind of like, well, this is your patch and that's their patch, and I think that's kind of really small-minded, so it's really exciting to be able to be part of something national.
And it used to be that within those patches there were the people who did commercials, the people who did films, all that sort of stuff. Is there any distinction across those lines anymore as well, or is production?
In terms of, from my point of view, production's production, because I think, it would be very ridiculous for us to say we can only support you because you're doing, X, because this is where more of our funding's from. Ultimately, it's a chain, production, whether you're working on a commercial or on a documentary or a drama this week, you might be on a feature film, in a month's time. And I think it's important for us to be able to provide support for crew all the way through that and to not differentiate. I think that would be kind of crazy because, ultimately, the stronger our production is because they're able to work and grow and expand their knowledge and talents, then the more we will have a much bigger and a much more substantial crew base and to be able to rival other countries. And I think that's really important.
Second to last question then, is the fact that you're able to pool all these resources in one place, does that mean you've got a bigger slice of pie to give out, or has all the money that's come from all those regional places kind of dissipated and you're left with whatever was left in the middle?
There's a lot less money. So because the government abolished the regional development agencies, each regional development agency had a budget for to support this sector. That money is gone. So there is a lot less money. However, for example, our development funds that Chris oversees, I sign off each of the awards, and looking through the ones that we've signed off so far, they're a hell of a lot better, I think, than the ones that we had when we were just a region. So I think actually being able to cast the net wider has meant that it's easier in a way for the quality projects to get through. So although there is definitely less money, but frankly there's less money generally. And what we're seeking to do is to help people to be entrepreneurial. So rather than whinge about the fact there's less money, is actually to find a way, because there is money out there. There are all sorts of, there's maybe not a lot, but there are significant amounts of commercial money, and that's what we need to do. Our job is to get things ready for the market and to provide the right infrastructure. It's not to support projects that people don't want to go and watch. So that's what I think we've got a much better chance of doing that in the way that we're working at the moment.
It's probably also the case that funds coming in from non-traditional sources are probably happier also just to be dealing with, okay, well, I know I only have to give it to this one place instead of getting competing bids from all different little organisations.
I mean, I think the other thing is, you just have to work smarter in this sort of climate. So where we have pots of money, we're much more actively looking to how we match that against other pots of money so that we can grow funds that actually are of a bigger scale. Sometimes that comes because you have to get people that have meeting agendas. But, again, if you look at something like the iFeatures initiative, that has investment from BBC Films in it, it has investment from the BFI in it, but, that's a project that we initiated in which we lead. So they're not they're not sleeping partners, but they recognise the fact that that's a project where it has, ourselves as a lead partner. And I suppose increasingly we'll look to do that. And also, I think the other great thing that we're doing is we're bringing money that is also cross-sectoral. So it's not just about having film money, it's about having money that also wants to support digital companies, games, and so on and so forth. And that's, again, is one of the strengths of the English regions in a way, is companies in the English regions tend to operate across a more diverse portfolio of content, because in a way that whole problem of having sustainable film companies,
right,
they've looked at that problem in a different way. So they operate in TV and film, and Aardman's a good example where it has multiple divisions really, all of which is still under the Aardman brand, but they operate across a whole range of markets, and that's the way I think going forward that you build those sustainable companies.
A couple of quick names from you of people who've excited you lately in terms of their content.
Oh God, okay. Well, I would say this. I mean, we just completed a feature that came through one of our sort of earlier schemes, which is called 8 Minutes Idle, which is a really interesting one, directed by Mark Simon Hughes, produced by Sarah Cox. What was really great about that project is that they came from an animation background and wanted to move into a live-action feature, and it's a comedy and a romantic comedy. And what they've done is they've taken that wonderful aesthetic they had in animation, very quirky humour, and it had led to huge amounts of international awards from Annecy and Hiroshima and things like that, and also a BAFTA, and they've taken that into live action. And I think that's another example. It sort of touches on the thing you do. It's people who don't just come up through short films, they actually come from different disciplines. So animation crossing into live action features, TV directors coming into those. So I think that's the most exciting thing, is actually not just new talent, but talent that actually recognises that film gives them a canvas and something interesting to say on an international stage.
Okay, so finally from each of you, a film that you remember as being truly representative of what Creative England should be all about.
So my favourite film of all time is by Terence Davies. It's called Distant Voices, Still Lives. And what I love about Distant Voices, Still Lives is it broke the mould in terms of how to tell stories, because it tells stories through songs. And I love I love his aesthetic, and I love the fact that it was a very, very brave film to make, and so I hope we carry on making films like that.
God, it's going to date me. It's going to date me now. No, it's going to date me. I mean, I'm going to go tradition on this one and say actually the film that I think is really interesting from a regional point of view, and also punched its weight, historically, and people still watch it, is something like Get Carter. Because, the thing about that is it's a genre film. It was sexy of its time, it's Michael Caine. But the great thing is, if you still talk to people, that film still defines, for many people, rightly or wrongly, the northeast of England. It captured that moment in time and place. And I suppose that's the sweet spot for us, is finding films that somehow capture something that is, almost a zeitgeist moment of the English regions at that point, which endure. That film's 30 years old, but still holds that sort of place in the public imagination. And that's great if you live in that city, because no matter what you think of the film, it's still people in that city extraordinarily proud of that film and what it said about their place.
Okay.
It's really a very difficult question to answer, really. I mean, similarly...
Did you just say Full Monty? Is that what you just said?
Well, you know what?
Is that what I heard?
The thing, I'm from Sheffield, so I can happily, we all get given a DVD when you're born. You have to see that film. But it's similarly, I mean, something actually like the Full Monty, and this is England. I think both Sheffield films. So they are films that, as Chris has said, they're of their time and of their place, and I think that's really important. But I think it'd be really hard to say, because I work with so many different films. I'm really proud that we're able to bring in things like Captain America and Close 9 Roads for them, and Sherlock Holmes, and that's able to double for New York or for Victorian London outside, up in the north, and I think that's really exciting that England actually can either give you what's now and what's current, and represent people's lives as they are now, and make people feel kind of as the moment, and that their lives are represented. But equally, we can show you anywhere else in the world, and we can give you that, and I think that's really exciting.
Nicely done. Thanks very much for spending a few minutes with us.